Hey, can you guys see what I'm sharing? It should just be the white paper.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Actually, hold on a sec. Oh, crap.
Doc, are you sharing the document?
No, I had to stop for a second, so give me just a minute. I'm trying to fix it. So give me just a second.
Okay.
They don't, for some reason, I just have trouble with Zoom. Okay, hopefully you guys can see that again.
Yep.
Okay, cool. We'll give people the 2 minutes to join. And go ahead and add your names to the attendee list if you'd like. Okay. Let's see who's on the call. Interesting. We don't have Ken. Oh, Mark, you're on. Good. Okay. Okay. Tell you what, I want to go ahead and get started. Where's my agenda? Okay. So for the agenda today, basically, obviously, going to try to finish up the white paper as best we can anyway. There are a couple of outstanding comments that I just wanted to get some discussion going on. Let's start with the easiest ones first. Loaded question or statement. Okay, so first of all, in this history of serverless section, the stuff that I have here highlighted here in yellow, this kind of got in, when I was reading through this, it kind of got into the feeling where it was just sort of a listing of everybody's favorite product. And now that we have the serverless landscape spreadsheet, I feel like we don't really need to do it inside the white paper itself, especially since at some point people are going to want to continually add it or add new things to this list, and which means more updates to the white paper. And I'd rather save that for the spreadsheet. That way I don't have to keep those two in sync. So what I was thinking about doing was erasing all the stuff in yellow here and just combining the two paragraphs. But before I went off and did that, since it does involve product names, I didn't want people to be upset or anything. So I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that before I actually did it. Are there any concerns with that?
No, but one comment from my perspective, Matt here for the first time, so I apologize if you've talked about this already. But I think that we've been noting, especially inside IBM, I think it's noted by some of the names you see here that you'll be deleting likely, is that there needs to be a discussion of why serverless discussions are shifting more towards the name functional workloads, cloud functions, because basically we've acknowledged that it's the workload we're discussing, not the concept that you don't have a server. It's more important about talking about the workload. So if there needs to be some discussion aligning why people are using the term function or function as a service and using that more widely now than the word serverless.
So we do have an entire section on what is serverless computing, where we do talk a little bit about that, Matt. Have you read that section to see if it covers your concern?
No, all I'm seeing is what you're projecting here, and this is my first call again.
Okay, not a problem. So do me a favor, go ahead and read the previous section, and if you don't think it covers what you're trying to address there, then we can definitely work on that. But in terms of this particular section, I just didn't see the value add in necessarily this text right here, which, as I said, just felt like a list of product names more than anything else.
So Doug, the reason that I put it in there was to allow people to align what this document was talking about and the popular names. We can debate popular, but the popular names of the services that people would likely be able to draw a relationship with. So, I'm fine with us removing it. It was merely there to be able to have people start think, oh, what you're talking about is something along the lines of what AWS Lambda is providing.
So do you think that the spreadsheet that we have covers that, or do you still think we need some text in here to draw that link?
I don't know that the spreadsheet is going to draw the same inspiration that this does.
Yeah, I think it doesn't hurt to have this paragraph there, right? So people has a feeling of the history, what are the, big providers and also the evolving history.
Okay, so am I the only one that's concerned then that as people feel like they want to add their name to the spreadsheet, that they're also going to want to add it to this paragraph?
I would, sorry for the cough. Right as I spoke. No, I would say I agree to leave it there. What I would say is maybe add just a third paragraph that says, hey, listen, this is, this was the state when we wrote it, and here's the spreadsheet where we're tracking a landscape. At least a call out to that spreadsheet to maybe discourage people from modifying it. If this is transferred to what Markdown or whatever. But I would say, yeah, this was landscape. But for a more up-to-date more up
I agree with that linkage, but in addition, you should probably basically state up front that these are examples and acknowledge up front that there are many other providers and not limited to the following list.
Yeah, I think those are good suggestions. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, I can take that action. I'm going to do that. Boom. Hold on. Okay. Is there any disagreement with that direction then? Okay, hold on.
Also, that spreadsheet, I found out, can people add new, services, serverless service to that spreadsheet? Looks like now it's not open for adding new things, right?
Yeah, so I was going to talk about that later, but since you're bringing that up now, Kathy, I'm a little uncomfortable with giving write access to the whole world, obviously. I'd rather have people try to add to it by making comments, and that way someone on the working group itself can then look at it and review it and approve it. Now, I have no problem with giving everybody in the working group, in essence, editorship permission. I just didn't want to open up to the entire world just to make random edits. I wanted to go through a simpler comment. So,
yeah, I think, people in this work group can, add it. But yeah, I'm not suggesting opening up for everyone,
Right. Okay. I'll work on at least giving the editor or the people in the working group write access so they can approve stuff.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see. Let's jump to, I think that was actually the easiest one. Now let's jump to something a little more exciting. Have people taken a look at the old section of what is serverless computing? In particular, our favorite bullet number 2 here. Are people okay with what's currently in the document, or do we need to discuss this more? And keep in mind, I don't think we're looking for this to be absolutely 100% perfect. We obviously don't want it to lie, but I'm looking for people to say yes, they can live with what's there. Not as if they're preferred, but can they live with it? Anybody who can't live with it? And if you need more time, that's fine too. Obviously, we're not shutting this down right now. But is there anything worthy of discussing at this call right now?
Doug, this is Arun. Sorry, I'm on a call, so I can't see the exact text right now. But I thought a couple of things that we talked about last time was we will remove the word absolutely and we'll add the word usually. And there was a discussion around usually is kind of vague. And what do you mean usually? And it doesn't give any proper guidance. And we also said that there was a bit of a disagreement in the working group itself. So has anything changed since then?
So just to let you guys know, what I did is, since I wasn't on the last call, I basically just accepted the edits that I think Ken made to the document. And as part of those edits, the word absolutely was removed, but the word usually, let me just double check, I don't think it's in there as of right now. So that's the current state of things. Do people feel that
okay,
we need... Go ahead, sorry.
What I can do is, I'm actually on phone, so I can't see the document right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I will take a look at the document again today and hopefully get back to you in the next couple of days or so.
Okay, that sounds good. Anybody else on the call have any comments?
Hey, Doug, Ken too.
Hey, Ken. Okay. Not hearing any, so I'm going to assume silence is...
Yeah, I guess, so this is Lee Calco, right?
Hey, Lee.
Hey, I don't know that there is absolute just sort of reinforces the no, and we're still saying no cost, which implies absolutely. I don't know quite how deep my heartburn goes here. I don't know. It's not very deep, but it's. I guess one of the questions that I had asked the team last time was what the negative ramifications are of using something that isn't as definitive as no. And so, like, to the extent that it were to say generally or usually, and I think some had articulated those, and there was, there were certainly a number of us that were more comfortable with saying no cost. And then the other suggestion that I had made as an outcome of that was that maybe we want to state this identify the perspective from which we're speaking. And I guess we did. We said we have from a customer benefit. So actually, now that I'm rereading it like that, hey, that really helps.
Yeah, because it definitely talks about benefits to the developer, right?
Yeah.
Not the hoster guy.
Right. Yeah, and in that statement too, it says a customer benefit. So, which I think helps a ton. Actually, I wouldn't have opened my mouth had I read that just a minute ago. That said, I think that one thing for us to consider is that to the extent that functions are being run by 1% of the world's workloads, or they represent that, it's some small percentage. To the extent that grows and grows and grows over the next few years, I got to imagine that those providers can begin to consider different pricing plans and how it is that they, charge customers for the consumption of those services, which still may never include idle time, but things might change, I guess is what I'm saying.
I think we tried to cover this with the caveat that we put in agreement with Yaron the other week of in brackets right after that, with the exception of stateful storage costs or added capabilities, functionality / feature set, does give you kind of a catch-all for that, what we consider to be usually or representational of usually.
Yeah.
Why don't you say no compute costs when idle? That's being honest.
Yeah, you could say that too.
Rather than having a big negative statement after it.
Is that what people would like to do? Remove the stuff in parentheses and put the word compute here?
Hey, Doug, I had a suggestion. This is Alex, by the way. Why don't you just change, rather than no, change that to minimal cost when idle, and then in the paragraph say one of the greatest benefits is that there are minimal or no costs, because that would let you future-proof it a little bit. Because if people do start charging over time, it still looks like it's fine, and minimal is close enough to know that I think people may be okay with it. I don't know if that makes sense.
I think it brings up the same question of ambiguities, and you have to end up explaining yourself, much like the parentheses attempted to last iteration.
Okay.
You have to redefine minimal then.
Yeah, that might be opening a can of worms. That's my fear.
I like keeping the caveat there because it does cover the points that Yaron tried to make the other week around, what would be the exceptions to it. So like when we had those kind of ambiguous terms like usually or sometimes or maybe, it left a whole lot of ambiguity to what could potentially fit in that bucket. And so, I mean, I think just putting some amount of catch-all in there gives at least context to what could be there. I don't think we need to say like that's the only, like there's nothing in this document that's chiseled into stone, but it doesn't seem necessarily like we're blocking the future potential of things.
Right. But I'm still saying compute belongs there, and if you have an
compute should belong there. Agreed.
If you have an exception, I would probably not lead with it. I'd put it as at the end saying, of course these things don't consider blah. I wouldn't lead with it immediately after the emboldened title. I would take that parenthetical section and add it more towards the end if possible.
Yeah, I think there's no compute cost. I think that's better because you could charge for other costs, right? Like some other infrastructure or whatever.
So again, this is just a white paper, guys. We're not defining what companies can or cannot charge for things. So just the amount of money we've spent with all of our times working on just this one sentence, I think is insane. Somebody make a proposal and let's go with it. It's like taking too long.
Yeah, that's why I kept saying I want to get people to the point where they can live with it, not whether this is something they would write themselves.
I would do this. That would make to end the discussion in my mind, at least, would it acknowledge that there are other costs. With that parentheses, move it to the end and say, of course, this does not consider other costs such as add parentheses.
So what do people think about that as I start to type it up?
You can even say something like, this isn't trying to make a commercial pricing statement in stone. We're just sort of talking in general terms in this introduction section of the white paper. So we're not trying to make any sort of legal terms around how you charge or don't charge for services.
This is Austin with the OpenFAS project, and I think if it comes down to what people can live with or not live with, I think some of the verbiage here still would probably make a lot of the open source projects a little uncomfortable, but I don't know how much say we would have in that. That would just be my opinion from an open source perspective.
From an Apache perspective, it doesn't bother us. I mean, somebody's got to make money off of it, or else the open source project doesn't exist.
So let me ask the question, is there any objection to moving this stuff in parentheses to the end, like I've done? Going once. Done. Okay, obviously this isn't set in stone. People will still have time to review it, but it sounds like we may be okay for right now until people go back and think about it some more. So let's go to the next big change that I want to discuss, and it's right here. So Alex put in a proposal for condensing, what's the title of this section? Serverless use cases. To condense the serverless use cases down to this stuff in here, around page 9. Dan, I think you were one of the main authors on this one, or Daniel, do you want to take a stab at your comments on this one?
Yeah, so my general feel for this, and actually it applies to the next two sections as well, is that I do appreciate the edits. I do appreciate the effort to condense, but I think there was quite a bit of text in the original that kind of went through a lot of community editing and a lot of compromise and a lot of discussion. So I wouldn't want to just remove it for the sake of conciseness. I think there was still some important information in there. But what I would like to do is, I see that Alex rewrote a few sentences here and there that really, are better written than our community effort. So where possible, I want to cherry pick those and put them in. But in general, my philosophy is I would err on the side of keeping what we already agreed on in there rather than getting too condensed with these edits.
So it sounds like you're proposing more of a cherry picking of edits as opposed to a wholesale replace. Is that fair?
That's right.
Alex, any comment on that one?
I mean, it's really a community paper, and if the community feels that way, it's fine. I'm just looking at what I created was more from a product marketing perspective of what I think would be easier to consume and easier for lay people or people that are maybe less technical to understand. And that's why I set it up that way. So I mean, that would be my primary comment. The other thing just to note, which I did change, is that in every instance, I linked to an actual real world use case outside. I think I did in all cases except for one, just to make it a little more clear so that people could go find these use cases elsewhere and see them working in the real world.
Exactly. Yeah, like that was one of the great things I'd want to cherry pick out of there.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any other comments from the folks on the call in terms of which direction they prefer to go? Okay, because I'm inclined to take a look and see, Dan, what it would look like if after the cherry picking and see how that feels. So you wanted to take on that task and make those edits, and I guess in all three sections, and because those are the other, yeah, because there's another one here for the serverless versus others, and then there was one more. Which cloud native deployment model should you use? I think all three had the same questions related to it, right, Dan?
That's right. Yeah, and that's the same feeling I would have is, yeah, they were definitely in need of grammar and spelling updates. So I appreciate those. So I'm going to cherry pick where those were improved or the additional context for links and things. That's what I'll add into the original.
Okay. So
thanks, Dan.
Yep. Dan, not to put pressure on you, but let me put some pressure on you. What kind of timeline are we looking at here?
Yeah, so after this call, and now that we've discussed it, I'll go ahead and make these edits.
Okay, because I believe, I just scrolled to make sure I'm not lying, that once we get those edits done, that's it for comments and changes to the doc itself. And what I'd like to do is, if you could get those edits done by like sometime tomorrow, Dan, then we could give people until next week to do a final review and claim success, and then we can present this to TOC on the 7th, I believe. Does that sound fair to you, Dan?
Works for me.
Okay. Anybody else on the call have any objection to that as a working plan? Okay, no objection. In that case, I guess the question for you, Ken, is I believe you said you were going to start working on some slides for the TOC call. Have you had a chance to start that yet, or do you feel comfortable sharing what you have started, or you want to wait?
Yeah, I have not even started yet. I got slammed last week, but I do have a placeholder on my calendar for tonight to start working on those.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, and you can start, Ken, from the CNCF thing that I did at ServerlessConf. I put a link to it in the GitHub repo. I can give you the original slides if you want those.
Perfect.
All right.
That'll be very helpful. Thanks.
Excellent. All right. In that case, are there any other topics people want to bring up at all? Nothing?
You hear me, Doug?
Yeah, go ahead, you're on. I don't know if it's just me, but you're breaking up really badly.
I wanted to raise this discussion around the events. I see it from Austin, and I think we lose partner technical details. And it seems like we sort of ignored this issue, and we need to, I do see several key issues with the current proposal, and I think we need to have a room to discuss it.
Okay, so you're kind of breaking up there, but it sounds like you want to start the discussion about how to how to potentially reconcile the different proposals for eventing. Is that true?
Yeah, even before reconciling, we need a stage that everyone can sort of present, and people can react. Just saying, we've talked to a bunch of guys, and they all feel cozy that the fact that we need a standard doesn't buy us anything. And also, I'll appreciate if we raise questions in the Slack and people sort of address them and answer, and not sort of ignore the technical aspects.
Okay, so let me ask this question, because I don't want to put people on the spot, but given that we do have basically half an hour left, the people who put forward a proposal for the eventing stuff, is anybody on the call comfortable discussing and presenting their stuff now, or if not, that's fine. We can wait until a future call. But if somebody feels like they can do it now, we have a half an hour.
Well, Matt's good.
Yeah, I'm not really on my PC. I'm on a mobile right now, but I think there is room for reconciliation between the proposals. I think we just need to give people a room to present their concerns from one another. In my proposal, I did refer to the second proposals and read my concerns on the second proposal and ask for sort of some comments or someone to look at it. Because I think the major issue that I see with the second proposal is the fact that we're forcing people to think in JSON terms, and not all the workloads in serverless are necessarily going to be JSON documents with a fixed schema. And at least not in our case, where we are looking quite a bit on back-end use cases and high-performance streaming use cases, etc. So we need a proposal that encompasses multiple use cases. That's on one end. On the other end, we need to encompass existing solutions that are already in the market and find a way to reconcile existing solution. Just like Chris said last week, is it's a nice proposal, but I'm definitely not going to change how Amazon is doing Lambda just because there is a proposal. But we can come with some proposals that may be able to encompass what the existing situation and extend it from there, which is what I tried to do in my proposal. I also presented 4 different use cases that I think are very valid and are covered in the serverless white paper, like IoT and machine learning, etc., and inferencing of pictures and others that I think we need to see that the proposals do enable us to work around those use cases. And currently, at least the other proposal doesn't.
Okay, so since you're mobile and you were breaking up a little, I think you're probably not in a good position then to present your eventing stuff to the group today. Matt, I think I heard you say you might be in a position to.
Yeah, I mean, I joined today in anticipation of this topic coming up.
Okay.
First, I'll say,
wait.
I don't want to talk about events. Let me just say that. But my history, forces me to come forward because events is very contentious. And before you can't just say, here's my format and walk away, because everyone's coming at it needing different use cases to be supported by event formats. So I just understand if you seriously take up this topic, what you'll encounter, because I did this as part of an ISO standard for eventing, an event format. And so I can talk about why it's important to get your terminology straight, to get the semantics aligned, and to have a model you talk against. And if I can help illuminate what the journey we've been through in CADF, maybe that will open people's eyes as to how expansive this topic really is and what you're getting into.
Right. Okay, so hold on just a sec. So Matt, net of that is you are able to at least talk to the CADF stuff that you put in there, which is fine.
Today, I know that Yarn's on the phone, and I've reviewed some of his proposals. And again, I see semantic alignment needed and terminology and modeling needed. So I would love to present today some of these higher order concepts to get people thinking along those terms.
Right. Okay, that's fine. Just hold on a sec. Austin, I believe you're on the call. Is this something you feel comfortable talking about today, or do you want to wait until a future call for your stuff? Austin? Okay, I thought I see him. I think I see him on the call, but he's not responding. Now, okay, but before
I think the other point, again, I don't think that my proposal is saying this is how we want to do it.
Wait. Yaron, wait, hold on a second. I'm more interested in the procedural question right now. I'm not talking about events, okay? Austin mic is broken, so obviously he won't be able to talk to it unless he gets that fixed.
Hey, Doug, can you hear me now?
Yes, now I can hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. My headphones are acting up. Hi, Yaron. Hey, Matt. Yaron, I just pinged you actually just a few minutes ago to line up a chat with you. I agree these specs can be reconciled. And I want to work with you on that. I think it's probably easier if we just have a private conversation where we kind of go through the details. And Matt, we chatted briefly. I continue to want to work with you, of course. Just to be clear, the way that we're approaching it with our spec is that, just like Matt said, this is a very expansive topic. And it's very clear that when you get a few engineers sitting around the table to talk about this, that they could talk about it for days, probably even years. Our focus from the beginning has just been keeping the scope very, very small and focusing on gathering industry support. We don't think this is going to go very far without industry support. The specification that we put out there is not final by any means. It was just a simple thing to put out there to start the conversation. So we're open to lots of changes and stuff, but at this time we are prioritizing just kind of working with some of the leaders in the space and really just trying to listen to them and figure out what their priorities are, what they need to have in there in order to actually implement this. So open to chatting with you, Yaron, and Matt, of course, to figure out how to make a better specification here. Just with that one caveat, and that is that we're working closely on trying to build industry support. We want to make sure that we have something that's not expansive, that is not overwhelming, that these big providers with so much kind of legacy stuff can actually adopt.
Okay, so let me jump in here just for a sec, because as Ken is reminding us in the chat, eventing is not technically part of our charter yet. So if we have a discussion in this working group at all, it's simply as sort of an additive thing that we just happen to be a bunch of people interested in. We don't have a direction from the TOC yet to talk about any of this stuff. Okay, this is just a bunch of guys or gals who just wanted to talk about stuff. So back to a little bit of a process question, because Chris made a comment in the chat that I want to get back to, and he was wondering whether there are other parts of the spec, I'm sorry, not the spec, of the white paper that we want to talk about on this call rather than shifting to the eventing stuff. So let me open it up again. Are there other parts of the white paper that people want to discuss right now on this call?
Sorry, just real quick, Doug, if you scroll up a little bit in the table of contents under serverless versus other cloud native technologies, I see serverless listed twice there. Can we just go to see what that's about? Maybe it's just a typo there in the...
Oh, that's because of the added stuff that Alex had. That will eventually vanish when Dan does his reconciliation.
Okay, yeah, I'm trying to read through and see if there's any other sections that I know I'm not familiar with. There's a couple that I know I haven't read in as much depth, and I'm willing to bet that there's a number of other people that haven't spent as much time further in the document as well.
Oh, I totally agree, and that's why we're not shutting it down today. But I also don't want to have people read it on the call itself.
Sure.
Right. So last chance, are there other specific areas of the document that people would like to talk about today? Because otherwise, you guys are free to go if you want, but we're going to allow people the remaining 25 minutes to start talking about the eventing stuff, because that seems like it's an interesting topic.
Wait, one thing, Doug. So I think the most important part of this is, right, so this white paper sets the stage for what the working group does in the future, some recommendations. Probably at least be on the same page there, because that does include, I think, what we might take on in terms of eventing. So probably that's, in my mind, the most important thing that we should look at.
Okay, so let's jump down to the conclusion section, which is on the screen here, and give people a chance to sort of skim through this section and see if there's anything that jumps out that they want to discuss at this point in time. And keep in mind, we're looking for just, are you okay with it, not is it perfect?
I have a comment. So here, the spreadsheet, serverless landscape, actually they all refer to the same link. Maybe we would like to give it the same name.
Okay, that would be good. I'll take that to do. Hold on. Sure. I'll do that. Okay, thank you, Kathy. Oops,
Okay,
gosh, I can't type.
actually, when is I heard that Daniel is going to reconciliation all of this. So when will that be done so we can have a final review? Because
right, so he's going to do the reconciliation not on everything, just on the sections that Alex did a rewrite on, and he's hoping to get that done tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow. Okay, I see.
And Daniel send that a note to the group when it's all done, so people can know they can start looking at it.
Yeah, I'll send a note and I'll drop a message in the Slack too.
Excellent, thank you.
So when are we going to present this to the TOC, this white paper?
Right, so the current plan is to present it on November 7th.
Oh, November 7th.
And
so those, should we have a chance to review those presentation slides?
Yes, correct. And let me just double check my calendar. So let's see, October, why do I keep saying October? November 7th is a week from Tuesday. So we will have at least one more meeting before then. And Ken said he's going to start working on the slides this evening. So hopefully by next Thursday's call, we'll be able to look at the slides as well as finish up any last comments on the document.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so back to the conclusion section. Anything jumping out at people they wish to discuss at this point in time?
Yeah. So going back into the eventing, if we sort of finalize this part.
Well, wait. You're on. Wait. Let's give people a chance to say yes or no.
Like an auction. Yeah.
Okay. So, do people need another minute? Do people need another minute or two to think about this, or is silence meaning everybody's okay with moving on? Okay, I'll give you another 10 seconds because if I don't hear anything, I'm going to assume people are okay moving on, and there aren't any other sections of the white paper that they want to discuss today. Okay, I'm not hearing anything. So with that, the main part of the call is done, meaning the white paper, and now we're going to shift to the eventing stuff. So eventing, Yaron, you wanted to say something. I'll let you go ahead and speak first.
Yeah, there could be two approaches. One that I see Austin is taking is saying, you know what, I'm coming with a proposal. I'm preparing a coalition of all the cloud providers, and I'm going to discuss with them the proposal, and then we're going to have the CNCF larger group go and say whatever they have to say. I think the right approach, which then sort of pushes a certain opinionated approach and doesn't let those cloud providers hear all the aspects that maybe other people have to share with them. I think the right approach is let's bring people to the table and let's discuss the proposals, the advantages and disadvantages of each one of them. And I assume we can reconcile those. I've been to many working groups in different areas. That's usually how things are done. It's not like, let's prepare a coalition, let's put some people around the coalition and we'll bring it as a finished goods. We need the room for discussion. And if people are not open to discuss it in Slack, let's find other ways to discuss it.
Okay, any other comments on that?
Yaron, I totally agree. I'm ready to have that conversation with you. So I think we should line up a separate call. I think that there's room for reconciliation and probably a way that we could kind of prioritize out all these features so that when we bring it to large vendors who already have a lot of investment in this space, they aren't kind of overwhelmed by the complexity of the proposals.
Sure, I'm 100% with you with putting things in stages and simplifying them. And again, I'm sure we can get to agreements and we'll do the call, okay? But I wouldn't position it like one is complicated, the other one is not complicated, okay? I think there are even simpler ways to coexist with existing events than sort of pushing everything to a schema with a JSON. But let's take it offline and see how we progress on that. But as a general comment, I think this approach of aligning a coalition and throwing a spec it's not something that I usually do when I'm in working groups. I tend to work with the people to create the spec and not sort of forming finished goods.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
to be clear, there's nothing finished about what we submitted. It was just a starting point of the conversation. We needed something to kind of rally people and get them to the table. So I think now is the conversation time, and it's the perfect time for us to chat.
okay, so in terms of next steps, in terms of a conversation, who would like to set up that follow-on call, or would you like me to set it up as a sort of as a tangential thing to this working group? Not officially sanctioned by TOC yet, obviously. How do you guys want to proceed on that? Because I have a feeling it's not going to be just you two that want to join the call. I expect that more of the other people are going to want to join. I don't have a problem setting it up if you guys want. That's fine. I just want to know if someone else really wanted it.
Yeah, I think we'll start the two of us because I think with a short call we can probably get to a lot of agreements.
Excuse me.
And probably convert a lot of it, and then we could do a bigger.
The two of us. What?
So I think what you're hearing is there are other people that want to join that call, if that's okay.
No, the only point, the reason it's me and Austin, because each one has a proposal. So I'm saying maybe we could, even before the bigger conversation, get to a point where
again the two of us
are.
Hey, Doug.
Yeah.
I'll work with Yaron and Matt to line up the call between us. I think we could accomplish a lot if it's just a smaller working session. And then we'll reach out to you to see if there's opportunity or if it's a good idea to do some type of recurring call on this subject.
Thank you, Austin.
I agree with Austin's approach. I think that, like I said, I don't want to be talking about events, but I know it's not interesting to many people on this call, so not drag them in. If we can work it out in a small group, the people who have proposals, all the better.
Right. Okay. So thank you, Austin, for setting up that call. And then I assume at a future one of these calls, you guys will bring back sort of, I don't want to say conclusion, but the net results of whatever your discussions led to, right?
Absolutely.
All right. Cool. Thank you.
I have a suggestion. So when you bring back to the group, could you first talk about the scope of the event? Like, because the event could be like the event metadata format, or the event to the serverless platform, or the event format to the backend service, right? And there could be many different event sources. So what are you working on?
Again, that speaks to my point of you have to have your semantics and your model aligned so you know what you're talking about. There's different types of events. And there's concept of originating event or metric event versus the actual event, internal event, as Yaron calls it. So you have to get your terms aligned. You have to scope out what you're intending to cover.
Yeah, right.
So maybe put a step in those, Kathleen. So, if you have an opinion here, just put it in writing and submit it as well. Again, there is there's nothing that precludes anyone from this group to just go and add PRs on existing stuff or just write their own papers. I think this is the only way to converge, is that everyone presents sort of a starting point, and then we sort of collapse it to one joint offering.
Right. Okay. So I think we have a next step in terms of the two different proposals that were put forward. You guys are going to set up a meeting and talk, and then bring back the conclusion or something to this group for further discussion. Is it? I suppose. So before I assume an answer, is it worth presenting anything on this call now? I'm leaning towards saying no and let you guys have your discussion first. Is that fair?
I mean, the only thing I present is the concept of a model and what you need to consider in creating a model. So when people submit, I mean, if anyone's going to submit suggestions, you need to have a model, and you need to understand what the set of data you'll need to eventually capture, regardless of what use case you bring.
If you're okay with this, Matt, I'd rather hold off on that deeper discussion.
I'm okay with holding off. But I think that in the end, I would be hoping to present this at some point anyways, regardless of the outcome of what Austin, Yaron, and I would come out with.
Yeah, and that may well be. It's just I suspect that a technical discussion of that nature at this point in time may just be a little premature. So I'd rather kind of wait.
What I intended to do and did not have time because I've been traveling is on my proposal, I'll add an additional set of pictures, actually, 2 slides, which will explain a model for filling out events, as well as what questions need to be answered when you fill out events. So I'll add those 2 diagrams, those slides to my proposal for people to look at.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, man, also there is a sort of a broader scope of events. I think we had the chat on that already. But what you refer to event is not 100% what I refer to event, because I generalize it a bit more to, like an HTTP generic HTTP request from my perspective is also sort of an event, and it won't fall into the model that user presents as event. So maybe we need, maybe the one is a message and the other one is a, an event with a schema. So we'll probably also need to figure out the terminology here.
Well, yeah, I think that's why I call it an originating event. It's still an event. It just lacks some comprehensive event information. It's just carrying some metrics or carrying some things as part of the model. It does fit. I'll just say that.
It sounds like you guys should side table this. I think we've kind of reached the extent of what can be accomplished today in talking about events.
Yeah, thank you, Austin.
Agree.
Okay. So are there any other topics that all people would like to bring up about it, either, well, preferably not events, but anything at all, in particular about the white paper too?
I made a comment in the chat just about the concerns about that. We talk about backend as a service. We define backend as a service a little bit later on, but then we don't really go too much deeply into it. I don't know if that matters to anyone. I know at one point there was someone from Auth0 that used to join us, and I think at times there's been people kind of like from the Firebase team. It feels like a gap since we do talk about it, but I don't know how much we want to concern ourselves with that. I also don't have.
What do you mean by backend as a service?
Chris, did you hear Yaron's question?
Sorry. Yeah, I mean, throughout the doc, we refer to backend as a service in a couple places, don't we?
I know we do at least a couple of times, yes.
So I'm just saying, like, we refer to it on. Of course, I can't see pages, so I can't tell exactly where it is. In the what is serverless computing, we refer to it. It shows up in the definitions. It shows up in one of the examples here with Firebase. In mobile backends. I'm just not sure if it's got the same type of space and coverage as some of the rest of things here. Especially like in the comparison section, like we're basically just comparing FAS, but again, we're using the umbrella term serverless.
Well, to be honest, at this point in time, I'm inclined to say that whatever's in there is probably sufficient since no one's brought it up as a concern up till now, and we're trying to shut this thing down.
Yeah.
But obviously, if people are reviewing the doc, if upon thinking about it, they think there is a glaring hole that's going to make us look kind of stupid by not saying more about it, propose some text so people can look it over. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, 100%. I just wanted to call it out to just make sure that if there's other people on the call who cared about it, that they are going to say something.
Yep. Always good to bring up things to think about. All right. Any other topics?
Are we going to have a session in the Cloud Native conference, a serverless session?
I know that Mark and I put forward a proposal to basically, I think it's fair to describe it as sort of like a summary of what we're doing here in the working group, and that one was accepted. I can't remember for sure if there's a serverless track or not. Does anybody remember?
There is a serverless kind of track. I don't know that I would call it a full track, but it's a mini track of serverless.
Yeah, and Dan Cohen was looking for ideas for Copenhagen next year. So I think it's going to be definitely more of a focus after Austin. So that's a thread.
Do we also want to have a face-to-face during Austin?
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion. Yeah. So that mini track, is that like a presentation style or is like a meetup style?
No, it's presentation. It's, vendor presentations and project presentations. So I think we want to have, first get to know each other and then also do some joint work together. Maybe 1 or 2 hours on Tuesday or Wednesday.
So tell you what, I'll take the action item to see if we can find a room to have some discussions. Obviously, the list of topics will vary depending on the status of things, right? Because if we're all completely shut down, and the TOC doesn't want to do anything relative to eventing, there may not be anything to discuss. But if the TOC says, yeah, sure, eventing sounds like an interesting thing, go off and discuss it, then yeah, using the face-to-face time would be very good to help jumpstart the eventing discussion. But let's see how that plays out.
Or just figure out the next step. I
Yeah,
think in
exactly.
general, maybe even over beers if it's too boring.
Right. So just out of curiosity, if I remember correctly, I believe the conference down in Austin is on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. On Tuesday,
The agenda starts at Wednesday until Friday.
Right. So I think Tuesday there's like there are a couple of different all-day sessions that I'm aware of. So I'd be a little bit nervous about trying to schedule something for Tuesday. What do people think about scheduling something for either Wednesday or Thursday in the afternoon or potentially evening?
Yeah, I think that's better for Wednesday and Thursday.
Okay.
Yep.
Because people might not fly over until Wednesday. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
I know already only arrives around noon.
Okay, I'll try to find a room for Wednesday or Thursday evening. I'll shoot for Wednesday first, just because in case somebody needs to leave early, they may leave early on Thursday evening. So Wednesday probably better, but I'll do my best.
Hey, Doug, this is Austin here. I've been chatting with Dan about this a bit. He mentioned something called a Saloon, which I'm not super familiar with, but is that what this would be?
I have no idea. I'll look into that.
Okay.
Yeah,
You know what? I already have a conversation with him ongoing about doing this Saloon concept, so maybe we can merge those conversations.
In that discussion, has it been, is the Saloon mentioned in terms of just a group of people who want to get together, or is it more of a presentation style thing for people across the entire conference to come to?
We've always chatted about it as a working session. However, I think that Cloud Native Con is a good target, and I think we should definitely try and work together to have something that's kind of somewhat solid before that conference, so that when we get together, we have something to chat about and to iterate on. Okay.
Well, okay, I'll talk to Dan and see what he was thinking for that, and maybe he already has some rooms lined up that we could steal. All right, thank you.
They probably have some media rooms or other rooms that they can, if it's CNCF, they can find something.
Yeah, I'm sure they can, yeah. Okay, but I'll take the AI to talk to Dan about that.
So that Minitrack, Mark, is that run by Dan? Is it hosted by Dan, or who hosted that? Who hosts that?
I think that they put that together based on the CFPs that were available to them and the ones that they wanted to bring into KubeCon.
Okay. Any other topics people want to bring up? We only have 5 minutes anyway. Going once, going twice. All right, I believe we're done. Thank you guys very much. And please, after Dan sends out this note, hopefully by tomorrow, saying that he's done with the reconciliation, please find some time to review it over the next week, because hopefully on next Thursday's call, we'll try to shut this down.
So will Dan send out through email or what? Or
Yeah.
where?
Yeah, Dan will send out an email. I think he said he's going to send an email and post a message into the Slack channel.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
All right, cool. All right, with that, thank you guys very much for joining, and we'll talk next time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.